What surprised you the most about your colleagues in opposition, especially after testing the parks of power?
First of all, in Parliament, you work together. You work together, whether it was under FDC or under NOP, you'll have a cabinet comprising all political parties in Parliament. But outside, you are elbowing each other. Outside, you can't. So I think we all pretend that we are fighting to remove a government, because this government has entrenched itself. This government has taken over, captured the state. So the arsenal at their disposal is such that no one can confront it. You can't confront it alone. The same way we work in Parliament is the same way we should work outside. But I discovered that many of us who go to Parliament go there primarily because Parliament pays a salary, a huge salary. I joined the Parliament in 2011, where I think about 61 opposition MPs. But to get the 61 MPs to support one position was always very difficult. On average, you have just about half who will support an opposition-generated position. I was chief opposition whip during the 10th Parliament, and I declined because when General Muntu asked me to serve as chief opposition whip, I said, no, MPs have no discipline, I am not interested. I keep reminding people, Muntu told me, we are training you to be a leader and you're not going to choose how we are going to train you. Eventually I accepted. The discipline, so you want to hold government to accountable, but you are doing the same thing. Sometimes you are calling ministers are not in the Parliament, but even your colleagues behind you are not there. People don't read, people don't prepare, whether opposition, because the moment you don't have the numbers, you must take serious. I told the people that the opposition must always win the argument. You may not win the numbers. But colleagues with whom you're in opposition, some of them are not even interested, they are not in Parliament, they don't eat, they don't prepare. Their pursuit in Parliament is just the salary. They are as bad as NRM or as anyone else. So even the little that you should be able to do, you end up not doing it. When I supervised the committees, one time I did a report to Afro, who was the leader of opposition, looking at the performance of chairpersons of accountability committees. You generally say you need to go and find out. There are chairpersons of accountability committees who never filed a report. 2.5 years, no report, not even a report of 2 paragraphs. But they are conducting meetings every day. Conducting meetings, rolling people in the mud, insulting them, abusing them, and there is no report. They move from one organization to another, URA, NSSF, what. The one thing I have discovered, private companies have targets, and those targets are supposed to be met for them to survive. I think governments and public institutions ordinarily don't have targets, and they can survive without meeting any. Because that Parliament, for example, the budget of Parliament has now risen to 1.2 trillion. What is the target? How many bills must Parliament process? How many motions? If they don't meet them, what is the sanction? I looked at the judiciary. One time I used to sit on a committee on legal and parliamentary affairs, and they tell you the case backlog. You go to the lower court, the magistrate court, and out of either 30 or 40,000 cases, they have done about 20. You go to court, the magistrate will arrive at 11, adjourn all the cases, and she leaves. Right now, we are in the High Court with the Dr. Kiza Wisje's case. The judge put it at 11. Sometimes he keeps them, sometimes he doesn't. Then at 11, Ruzira hasn't delivered the message. So the level of inefficiency, even if someone, because there is people usually spend a lot of energy on corruption, because corruption in Uganda, people think it's just stealing money. But if people are stealing time, you pay people for work not done. The other day we went to the pension office in Parliament. I became a pensioner. I saw an MP I have not seen in 5 years. I asked Honorable Abdul Katun, is this guy an MP? For 5 years I have not seen him, but every month he's paid. So the lack of standards, the lack of accountability, the cheating, because people think cheating means stealing money, but you are cheating time. So coming back to the question I asked the opposition, because you want to go into government, saying that these people have failed this and that, and that's why General Muntu kept telling us at FDC that if we continue behaving the way we are behaving, it could even be worse when we get into government. And I saw a little bit of that from colleagues. And I'm not saying I am an angel, but you want to try and try with everybody.
Is that to say that the current faces we have in opposition, it would be very rare for them to step into government?
Not all of them. There are people who do a fantastic job. But there are many that if I am in charge of government, I wouldn't allow to access a public office, either because of their conduct or because of the levels of competence. People are usually very angry with me when I speak about competence, because you are running a country, people's lives. Every decision that you make has a consequence of either improving or not improving people's lives. People who don't have the basic competence, I wouldn't encourage them, and I have seen them, because it doesn't mean that NRM, because you see NRM has a luxury. Even when they have people who are competent, they never allow them to do their work. And that's why competent and mediocres will mix freely. Because those with competence, there is no room to exercise that competence. If you're a mediocre, because you're doing nothing, so all of you are going to be judged. If you want to take over government from NRM, the levels of seriousness, the levels of competence should be different. And I have said, people get angry with me. There are many, sometimes even more than 60% of people in opposition, that if I had a way, I would never allow them to be part of government. But because you are few, so you cover up for each other.
In many ways that you've spoken out widely about power in Uganda, how would you describe power in Uganda? Many think it is concentrated in a few leaders or few family members. But when you look at sometimes decisions that are made, you question yourself whether these very few individuals actually have power, or there are certain technocrats that have captured power unknowingly.
We've moved from institutional to individual and eventually to family. At the beginning of President Yoweri Museveni's administration, I think because many of his contemporaries were still around, he would influence decision. He would work so hard to influence decision, but there will be institutional decisions. Because if you have Kategai around you, you have Mshega, you have Opakaburo, you will want to convince them before you make a decision. And it becomes a, if you look at the first extension, was it 1989? 1989, after 4 years, because NRM had said they will be here for 4 years, and then they will hand over power to civilian rulers. So that extension is something that they discussed and agreed that we need to do a constitution, we need to do the following, prepare the country, then you can call for competition and whoever wins takes over. The contemporaries, because Museveni has been very consistent, intelligent actor, started with the military, people who held power in the military started moving one after another. If you read Museveni's book and look at the formation when they are taking over power here, I think they had the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, I think they later created 9th and 11th Battalion. People who commanded these battalions at the time they took over power, one by one, they were removed from Kashiringi to Chihande to Samson Mande, Chakavale.